Welcome to SI Now. I'm Robin Lundberg. We're going to get to the Warriors' dominance, what else is new, and LeBron and the Cavs' response to the Celtics in just a second. But first, some breaking news out of New England as Tom Brady will reportedly not be attending the start of Patriots' voluntary OTAs. He has attended them in the past and has now skipped all of the team's offseason activities. Joining me to discuss is the MMQB's Albert Breer. Now, Albert, Tom Brady said he's using this time to get really rejuvenated. But from where I'm sitting, this seems like a clear message to the New England Patriots, is it?
Well, let's start here. My understanding is that he is trying to unplug and wanted to use some time this offseason to unplug, but there's no question about it. This takes it to another level. Phase one of every team's offseason program, that's just lifting conditioning. Phase two, which they just finished up last week, is when you start to get out on the field. Phase three is really when practice starts. Like football practice starts today in Foxborough, and in 31 other NFL buildings, the starting quarterback is there and ready to start practice. And so, yes, it's voluntary. Yes, it's his right to not show up to this, but he's always been at this. Even in the years when he was living in Los Angeles, he would make it here for OTAs. So the fact that he's not here for day one of OTAs absolutely positively means something, and obviously something now worth watching in advance of the veteran voluntary minicamp, which is set in Foxborough for June 5th to the 7th.
You know, Albert, I find the reactions to this kind of amusing because you get people saying, well, this is no big deal, and then you, who are as plugged in as anyone, saying it's significant. We know it doesn't mean Tom Brady isn't going to be the quarterback for them or anything like that this season. What do you think are the actual ramifications? What could, be the fallout of this?
Well, let me be clear, okay? Just so I'm 100% transparent about this. I still think the Patriots probably win 11 or 12 games. I still think Tom Brady is one of the best quarterbacks in football. But this is a shot at Belichick's program. And look, things have been uncomfortable in the building for Tom Brady the last couple of years. Deflategate was part of it. Jimmy Garoppolo's presence was part of it. And more recently, I think the way that Bill Belichick runs his program, the way he coaches, has started to wear him, in particular, because there's been conflict over the presence of Alex Guerrero. And I don't think it's so much Brady working with Alex Guerrero. It's been the migration of players on the roster going to work with Alex Guerrero. I think Bill Belichick has felt like he's needed to nip this in the bud. Obviously, his strength staff, this isn't great for them when there are a lot of players going up that hill and to the TB12 clinic to get their work in. And so I think as far as Bill Belichick's program goes, this is a little bit of a problem because if Tom Brady is not on board because of the animus stemming from the situation with Guerrero, stemming from the way he's been handled the last 2 years, well, that means something because I think a big part of why Bill Belichick's been able to run his program in a certain way, in that way, has been it goes back to the greatest player of all time being willing to take hard coaching, stick with the program when it's difficult. It's the ultimate selling point for everyone else in that building is if Tom Brady can take it, you can take it. Well, if Tom Brady is no longer taking it, if Tom Brady is rubbing up against it, then that means something else. Again, it may not mean a whole lot in 2018, but going forward where the program is, it could mean something.
What about the Belichick side of this? I haven't heard anything from him. Have you talked to anyone who has talked to him?
And you probably won't hear much from his side of it. I don't think this is ideal for him. Look, we know how important the offseason's been. We know how important the details are in that program. And quite frankly, we've celebrated over the last 18 years the way that they make use of all of their time, even in April and May and June. And so this isn't great for Bill Belichick. I'm sure he's not happy that he doesn't have a starting quarterback in there right now. I don't know how you solve this. He's a pretty intelligent guy. He's a pretty creative guy. I would think he can find a way to solve it. But look, if you're trying to adhere to a program, if you're trying to empower your strength coaches, how do you give on this? How do you give on what's gone on in that building? And if you're Brady, you're looking at it and you're saying to yourself, well, I've taken hard coaching for so long. I've been with the program for so long. I've put up with difficult circumstances to work under for so long. I've done everything you wanted me to do. And now I'm trying to set up my business for the next 20 to 25 years of my life. This is what I'm going to do post-football. And you can't even give me that. And so it's hard when you look at the two sides of it. Where's that middle ground? I don't know where it is. They're creative. They're intelligent people. Ultimately, I felt all the way along that the competitiveness of both men, the priority that both men put on winning football games, will find a way to win out here. I just don't know what the end game is.
Yes or no, Albert, this will be the final year of Brady and Belichick together?
No. I think that if I had to guess right now, I would say there's a chance one or the other is out the door after 2019. After 2018, I'm not saying it's impossible. And I don't think anybody outside of those two really knows the answer to it. I think it'd be less likely after 18, more likely after 19.
Albert Breer of the MMQB on Tom Brady not being with the Patriots at OTAs. Appreciate your time this morning.
You got it.
Obviously, the Warriors are great at basketball, but are they bad for basketball?
I don't think so. I think this is just a dominant team. And the funny thing about it, Klay Thompson haven't got going. That's the scary part of it. Once he gets going, then you're right. They are an untouchable team. But I think that there is a team out there that I think that can play along with them, and that would be the Boston Celtics. I think Boston has the youth and the fresh legs to be able to guard their style of play, which is move the ball and tire you out.
I do agree that Boston is best equipped to guard them. I just don't think they can over the course of a series, especially when you're taking scoring for scoring. I mean, you mentioned Klay Thompson. He's their third or fourth best player, and he's scored 37 points in a quarter before. Yeah. And the Warriors are different. You know, the NBA has always been built on dynasties and superstars, whether it's Shaq and Kobe or Jordan's Bulls in the 90s, LeBron as of late, the Spurs. There's so many of them. Yeah. But I've never felt the way I feel about the Warriors, where I don't think anybody has a chance.
No, I think, like I said, I believe Boston has a chance against them because they have the youth. They have guys that get up into you. I think they're probably the best defensive team out there that can go against a ball movement type of team that the Warriors play. So I would give them a 50-50 chance more so than any team that's left.
Well, before we fast forward to Boston in the finals, they still have the Cavs, right?
I know.
And we'll get to that in just a second. Meanwhile, the Rockets are still sitting there against the Warriors, down 2-1. And I feel the same way I did after Game 1, but Houston did win Game 2. Mike D'Antoni called them soft after this loss. Do they have another response in them? Do the Rockets have another response, or was Game 2 their response?
No, I think they have another response. I think that, they just have to get back to playing the way they played in Game number 2, where everybody got involved. I think Chris and James went a little bit too much one-on-one looking for their shot instead of getting everybody involved. They can't beat the Warriors just, Chris Paul and James Harden trying to outscore them. You can't do it by yourself. You need collectively everybody to, chip in. But
it's not happening. Come on. Just say it. It's not happening.
When they playing like this, man, I was very impressed with last night, the way they came out, especially in that third quarter, and just took over the game.
Chris Paul looks a little hobbled to me as well. And, missing layups, and the Rockets missed a lot of layups in that game, which, of course, leads to runouts for the Warriors, and that's never good. All right, let's switch to the Eastern Conference, because you like Boston against Golden State, but they did get blown out by the Cavs on Saturday night. What changed for the Cavs in that specific game? Because Boston had totally dominated it at home. Was it as simple as the location changing?
That, too, and LeBron hoping that all these guys get involved in the game early on. I think that's what he was trying to do in Game number 1. It never happened. Then he said that he's going to take over the game in Game number 2, where he go out and have a triple-double, and they lost. Like you say, locations helps, when you go home. And Boston obviously haven't been good on the road. But I think they're going to have a different response tonight. Whenever you get blown out like that, and just looking at those guys' face and knowing the competitiveness in that team right there, I think they're going to bounce back.
LeBron, a lot of people like, I'm going to rip your throat out, LeBron, where he just comes out scoring. But I don't think that's necessarily the most effective version of LeBron. Sometimes he has to do that. When somebody else gets going earlier, it takes a lot of that pressure off, and I think it frees his resources a little bit so he can be all around LeBron, and that's the most effective LeBron to me, the one who's scoring in a timely fashion, who's setting guys up with ridiculous passes across the court, and then is defending and swarming everywhere. But we set the standard for him where we expect him to be able to do everything all the time, and that's not really possible. He needs somebody else to help out so that he can do everything.
I agree with you 100%. As you saw in that game number 3, he got more rest. And Boston mentality is that we want to keep you on the floor as long as possible because they want to, wear him down, especially at the end of the game. And he's tried, like I say, he's tried to get all these guys involved. Kevin Love stepped up big.
But George Hill had 13 points. It felt like 25.
You're right. It did feel like 25, and he needs that. And in order for him to be able to have an effective game and play an overall game, and I think that he did that successfully, especially on the defensive end. You see the energy that he had, and he was exerting out there. And when he's playing like that and everybody's involved, then yeah, they're a hard team to beat. But I truly think the Celtics is going to bounce back. For some reason, they one of those resilience teams. Whenever they get beat bad, they seem to go back and play a lot better.
Well, you got them having a chance against the Warriors. Of course you think they're going to bounce back here. All right, I think if the Cavs win Game 4, the Cavs win the series. But you think Boston is winning Game 4?
I think Boston probably come out and win Game 4. If it goes back 2-2, then yeah, you can say. But I'm not taking anything away from Cleveland. Cleveland is a very talented team, and obviously they have the best player in the game in LeBron James. But I think something about that Celtics team is just I like their toughness, their mental toughness, and those young guys, they're not afraid to go get it. And I like teams like that.
Well, they had a couple of blowouts in the first 2 games of the series. The Cavs blew them out in Game 3. And, of course, we're talking about the Warriors and their dominance, which is going to lead to blowouts. The margin of victory so far in the conference finals is 24 points per game. What's just your initial reaction to that?
I don't know. I'm shocked, you know what I mean? Because you want these games to be nip and tuck. It's great for the viewers out there to be able to be engaged into the game. And you just don't like blowouts during this time of the year. And it shouldn't be a blowout game. Get beat by 41, that's not acceptable. I think teams are, just giving in sometimes when that lead starts to grow and they just give in.
How much of this is the explosion of the three-point shot? Because we see it taken at such a greater volume. When one of these teams, especially a super team like Golden State, gets hot, they can really bury their opponent so quickly.
Well, they were doing more so, I think, than the three-point shot. I think they were just attacking the basket on them and making it hard. Yeah, those three-point shots seems to, take some out of you, especially when you're trying to make a run. You go make a three, and all of a sudden Durant comes back and knock down a three. Curry come back down and knock down a three. It takes something out of you. Yeah, it has an effect, but that was just a good old taking behind the shed butt whooping.
Yeah, I think personally, if any team beats the Warriors twice in a series, they should also get a ring. That's what I think.
That's a good thought, but that don't happen.
John Starks, our NBA analyst, appreciate the time. It's time for another edition of Hot Take, Smart Take. One of our video producers, Sean Dolan, is here to help us out. He'll read a take. I'll determine whether it's hot or smart. Let's go.
All right, that's right. I'm filling in for Ben today. Let's see how this goes. The Golden Knights just advanced to the Stanley Cup final. They're the first expansion team to do that in their first season since the St. Louis Blues in 1968. Robin, hot take or smart take? If the Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup, they will be the best story in sports history.
That is a hot take. Look, in order for it to be a smart take, people have to care broadly. Now, people are starting to get on board with the Golden Knights, and it's an awesome story. Don't get me wrong. No one would ever expect an expansion team to win a championship. But when you're talking the best sports stories in history, you have those names that will ring beyond the years, beyond the generations and all that. I bet you most people out there still couldn't name a player on the Las Vegas Golden Knights. And maybe there's a lot of people out there who still couldn't tell you there is a hockey team in Las Vegas. Great story, but calling it the best story in sports history is hyperbole and therefore a hot take.
I don't know that I would go best sports story of all time, but don't sell them too short there. Marc-Andre Fleury's tearing it up. Anyway, moving on to the NFL, Johnny Manziel. He's not in the NFL, but he is in the CFL. He's joined the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And, well, the question now is, when might he be back in the NFL? So, Robin, hot take or smart take? He will be back in the NFL in 2019.
I think that's a smart take. We've kind of already seen some interest from all the reporting, scouts saying that he still has the ability. Credit where it's due. Johnny Manziel is doing what he can to get back in the NFL. I do root for anybody who's trying to turn their life around, so I hope he can have that success. But it's kind of staggering that I believe, honestly, Johnny Manziel will be back in the NFL before Colin Kaepernick. That's something to think about. But I do think the NFL teams are looking at him, and Johnny Manziel obviously has shown the commitment to get there. So not this season, but after 1 year in the CFL, he'll be back in the NFL.
All right, let's talk some NBA draft. Luka Doncic has been tearing it up for Real Madrid. They just won the EuroLeague title. He's the EuroLeague MVP. He's also the EuroLeague Final Four MVP. Robin, hot take or smart take? Luka Doncic should be the #1 overall pick in the NBA draft.
I say that's a smart take. DeAndre Ayton I would not take #1 overall because big guys are having trouble guarding in space. Meanwhile, you got a guy like Doncic, the EuroLeague MVP at 19. Those EuroLeague teams would smack Villanova. I don't think people realize how good the competition is over there. There's some things he has to work on. He's got to get better at his three-point shot because he's not the quickest guy there is, but he's got great size, great intangibles as far as passing ability. I've actually seen him compared to James Harden. Meanwhile, when you're looking at a big guy who could get played off the floor, even Joel Embiid, and he would be worth the #1 overall pick, Joel Embiid would, of course, but even he, as talented as he was, had trouble in that Celtics series. I don't want my #1 overall pick to be limited in any matchup, so I'm fascinated by the prospect of Doncic going #1 overall.
All right, Robin, last one I've got for you today. Shohei Ohtani, the most exciting young name in baseball this season. He's been tearing it up for the Angels. He's got 6 home runs and 84 at-bats. People are saying he might compete in the home run derby this year. So, Robin, if Shohei Ohtani competes, he will win the home run derby.
Well,
hot take, smart take.
That's obviously a hot take. He says he doesn't think he's ready for it, but it's super cool that he's even being considered, and I think that's one of the reasons why his story has caught on kind of the way it has. We've seen other guys be sluggers before, but we haven't seen a pitcher be a slugger before. So I'm all for Shohei Ohtani being involved in all the events, including the home run derby, but I wouldn't pick him to win it. That was another edition of Hot Take, Smart Take. Thanks, Sean. Now, a take that is difficult, no matter what you're doing, is a physical feat requiring strength, elite endurance, mental fortitude, years of training, and it's only been completed by a few thousand people ever. That's summiting the tallest mountain in the world, Mount Everest. Big mountain climber Adrian Ballinger is there documenting his attempt at an 8th summit in 11 tries, and we sent him a few questions about his experiences on top of the world.
Hi, my name is Adrian Ballinger. I'm here at Everest Base Camp on the north side of the mountain in Tibet in the Himalaya. That's actually Mount Everest right up there in the clouds. You can just barely see it. Base Camp is a beautiful place, and I actually just arrived here. I'm here for my 11th season on the mountain and attempting to summit for my 8th time. This year, I'm here guiding other climbers, and that's the reason I've been on the mountain so many times. I have a strong group of friends, clients that I've climbed with all over the world for the past 5 years, and now they're ready to be here to try to get on top. The biggest athletic challenge of climbing Mount Everest and expeditions like I do, it's really the endurance necessary, both physically and emotionally. So it isn't just a one-day race. Day after day after day, we have to put out effort, slowly moving up the mountain, carrying loads, taking care of ourselves in extreme environments with extreme cold and big storms. And, you know, the interesting thing about climbing big mountains versus other things like racing or ultra racing or marathons is the risk. There is risk up here. If we make mistakes, the consequences are truly severe. And what that means is we always have to keep really large reserves, and we've got to be conservative in our decision making. We can't just go for the end zone. And that's a big part of what I love about climbing these big mountains. It's also one of the biggest athletic challenges, is finding that line where you're working as hard as you possibly can, putting everything into it, but you can still get down alive. You know, the beauty of climbing is I really think it brings out, in many ways, the best of people in big mountains. So, you know, I think many famous athletes who have incredible ability would do really well up here, but it really has to do with their heart and what's inside as much as their actual genetic ability. You know, we've all heard stories of, you know, average Joes who have come out here and climbed Mount Everest, and that's a big part of what I do. I own a guide company called Alpenglow Expeditions that focuses on helping non-professional climbers to get to the tops of beautiful mountains like Mount Everest. I think the key is it's hard to know sometimes when you hear those stories or watch the movies to realize how much time and effort people have put in to be prepared, and that's really the biggest misconception. You can't skip building experience in big mountains before you get to Everest. You can't skip the athletic training. You can't skip the mental preparation. You have to be ready to make really difficult decisions up high in big mountains when things are going wrong. Each person at the end of the day is still responsible for themselves on the tallest mountain in the world. Our expedition this year is a little unique. Not only are we here to climb Mount Everest, but we decided that we wanted to try to climb another mountain first. So we started on the 6th tallest mountain of the world, called Cho-O-U, which translates to mean the turquoise goddess. We actually were successful, becoming the first and thus far the only team of the year to climb Cho-O-U. We did it in only 8 days in the country, when these expeditions traditionally take 1.5 to 2.5 months. And that's utilizing this new system that my company, Alpenglow Expeditions, calls Rapid Ascent, where we acclimatized at home and then came in super fit with great logistics and just raced up the mountain. So 8 days on Cho-O-U, then we spent 2 days packed up, cleaned up all of our equipment and human waste and trash, and raced over here to Everest. And we're about to leave tomorrow morning from here at 17,000 feet to try to get on the summit 6 days from now at 29,000 feet. I can't wait.
In the last few days, Adrian and his team suffered a major setback when their oxygen systems failed at 28,000 feet. But yesterday, in a last-ditch attempt before returning to base camp empty-handed, Ballinger summited Everest and is now tied for 12th all-time with 8 Everest summits at 42 years old. He's tied for 12th. The Cavs trying to tie their series with the Boston Celtics tonight in Game 4, and I think tonight's game will decide the series. I believe if the Cavaliers win Game 4, the pressure swings to Boston, and although they have the home court advantage, LeBron's going to get one of those games in Boston. I also think you'll see it indicating that the Cavs figured a little bit out in that last game. The way they dominated, they pressured the young Celtics players a little bit, and if LeBron gets any inkling of help, you know he'll take it home, because to me the most effective version of LeBron James is all around LeBron James, not just the scoring version. And when somebody else like George Hill is scoring, LeBron can do everything else. The thing that bums me out about it, though, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter, because whoever wins this series is going to get totally annihilated by the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. What are we doing it for? Well, hopefully you'll be here tomorrow to hear me talk about it, even if it's a fait accompli.